In the quiet stillness of our home, everything felt normal on the surface, but beneath it, something had already started to shift. What began as a familiar bond between mother and daughter was about to unravel in ways I never imagined. The house was quiet that afternoon. I stood at the window, watching the last of the golden sunlight filter through the trees. It had been a long time since I felt this sort of stillness. The kind that settles deep into your bones and makes you wonder if everything is as it should be. Evelyn had come home for the weekend, her first visit since starting her job in the city. It wasn't unusual for her to stay away for long periods, especially with her busy schedule. But this time, something felt different. There was a strange energy between us, one I hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just the passage of time or the way she had grown into a woman taller, stronger, more confident. No, it was something deeper, unspoken, hovering just beneath the surface of our conversations. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it left a lingering tension in the air like the faint scent of rain before a storm. I tried to shake it off, turning my attention to the kitchen, where I was preparing her favorite meal, spaghetti and meatballs, just like when she was younger. The familiarity of it brought a small smile to my face, reminding me of simpler times, when our relationship was untouched by the complexities of growing up. But the moment didn't last. As I stirred the sauce, I heard her footsteps in the hallway. She entered the kitchen, her presence filling the room in a way that caught me off guard. She smiled, but there was something about the way her eyes lingered on mine, a flicker of something I wasn't ready to confront. "Smells good, Mom," she said, leaning against the counter. I nodded, trying to keep my hands busy. "Just like old times," I replied, my voice sounding more strained than I intended. She chuckled softly, but there was a weight to the silence that followed. We both felt it, that unspoken tension neither of us wanted to acknowledge. It hung between us, heavy and thick, as if waiting for one of us to break the spell. "Do you remember when we used to cook together?" she asked suddenly, her tone lighter, as if trying to pull us back to safer ground. I smiled, grateful for the shift. "Of course, you were always in charge of the meatballs." She laughed, and for a moment, the heaviness lifted. We were just a mother and daughter reminiscing about simpler times. But as dinner progressed and we sat together at the table, that strange energy crept back in. It was subtle at first, the way her eyes held mine a little longer than usual, the way she leaned in just a bit too close when reaching for the bread. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was nothing, just my mind playing tricks. After all, she was my daughter, my Evelyn. There was nothing to worry about. But then, just as we were finishing dinner, she said something that stopped me in my tracks. "I've missed this," she said, her voice low and serious. "I've missed being home with you." There was a weight behind her words that made my heart race. I forced a smile, trying to keep the mood light. "I've missed you too, sweetie. It's been too long." But the truth was, I didn't know how to feel. There was an unease stirring inside me, one I couldn't explain. It wasn't just the words she had said, but the way she said them. The way she looked at me, intense, focused, almost longing. It sent a shiver down my spine, though I quickly pushed the thought away. After dinner, we decided to watch a movie together. I thought it would ease the tension. But as the night wore on, I found myself stealing glances at her more often than I should have. She had changed so much, grown into a woman before my eyes. And yet there was something unsettling about the way she seemed to hover close, as if waiting for something unspoken to pass between us. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just in my head. We were just a mother and daughter spending time together, nothing more. Or so I thought. The movie ended, and as I stood to clear the dishes, I felt her gaze on me again. That same intense look from earlier. I couldn't help but wonder, had something changed between us? Or was it all my imagination? I wanted to believe it was nothing. But deep down, a small part of me knew the truth. Something had changed. I just wasn't ready to face it yet. The morning felt too quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I lay in bed for a long while, staring at the ceiling, trying to push away the strange feelings from last night. But it was impossible to ignore. The house felt different, heavier, like an invisible weight was pressing down on everything. I finally got up and went to the kitchen. Evelyn was already there, standing by the window, looking out at the garden. She held a mug of coffee, and when she turned to look at me, her eyes were thoughtful, distant. I swallowed hard, feeling a strange flutter in my chest. This wasn't right. Something about the way she looked at me, calm but focused, made me uneasy. "Morning," I said, forcing a smile as I walked to the counter to make my own coffee. "Morning," she replied, her voice soft but firm. She didn't move, just stood there watching me. I could feel her gaze lingering, sending a shiver down my spine. I tried to keep the conversation light as we stood in the kitchen, sipping our coffees and talking about small things, her job, the weather, the garden. But the air between us felt thick, charged with something I couldn't name. Every time I looked at her, I saw not just my daughter but a woman, strong, confident, and something more. It was wrong, I knew that. But the feeling was there, like a shadow creeping into the corners of my mind. We decided to spend the day together. She suggested going for a walk, and though part of me hesitated, I agreed. I told myself it was normal, that I was being silly. After all, I was her mother. There was nothing wrong with spending time together. But as we set off down the familiar trail near our house, the tension that had been simmering between us seemed to grow with every step. The walk started easily enough. We chatted about old memories, how she used to run ahead on the same path when she was little, collecting rocks and sticks like they were treasure. But even in those light-hearted moments, I could feel something lurking beneath the surface. Her eyes would meet mine for a second too long, or her arm would brush against mine, and each time it happened, my pulse quickened. We walked in silence for a while, the only sound the crunch of our footsteps on the gravel path. The sun was warm on our faces, the air crisp and fresh, but inside I felt anything but calm. I kept stealing glances at her, wondering if she felt it too, the strange pull between us, something neither of us wanted to acknowledge but couldn't escape. Then, as we reached the clearing at the top of the hill, a spot we had always loved for its sweeping view of the valley, she stopped and turned to me, her expression suddenly serious. "Mom," she said, her voice slow. "I need to talk to you." My heart raced. I knew what was coming, and I wasn't ready for it. "What is it?" I asked, trying to sound calm, even though my throat felt tight. She looked away for a moment, as if searching for the right words. "There's something I've been feeling. Something I don't know how to explain." A lump formed in my throat. I wanted to tell her to stop, to take it back before she said something we couldn't undo. But the words wouldn't come. "I've been thinking about us," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "about how things have changed. Between us, I could feel the ground shifting beneath my feet. This was the moment I had feared. The one I'd been trying to avoid. My pulse pounded in my ears, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. "I know it sounds crazy," she went on, her eyes locked on mine, "but I can't help it. I've tried to ignore it, to push it away, but it's there and it's not going away." I stood frozen, unable to move, unable to speak. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that this was all in her head. But the truth was, I wasn't sure anymore. The line between us had blurred and I didn't know how to fix it. "Evelyn, stop." I finally managed to say, my voice trembling. "This isn't right. We can't feel like this." She took a step closer, her eyes pleading. "I know it's not right, but I don't know how to stop it." My heart ached as I looked at her, seeing the pain and confusion in her eyes. This wasn't something I had ever prepared for, something I had never imagined. How had we gotten here? How had our relationship become so complicated, so tangled? I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of confusion clouding my thoughts. "We need to stop this now," I said, my voice firm but soft. "You're my daughter. I'm your mother. This can't happen." "I don't want it," I added, though something in me strangely disagreed with what I said. She looked away, her jaw clenched, and I could see the conflict written all over her face. "I know," she said, her voice barely audible. "But it's so hard, Mom. I don't know how to make it go away." Tears stung my eyes, and I blinked them back, refusing to let her see me cry. "We have to find a way," I said, my voice breaking. "We have to stop this before it goes too far." She didn't say anything, just stood there, staring out at the valley below. The silence between us was heavy, filled with all the things we couldn't say, all the feelings we couldn't admit. I wanted to reach out to her, to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay, but I couldn't, not now. Not with this invisible wall that had sprung up between us. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke. "Maybe I should go back to the city," she said, her voice hollow. "Give us some space," I nodded, even though the thought of her leaving made my heart ache. "Maybe that's for the best," I said quietly. We walked back to the house in silence, the tension between us thicker than ever. When we got home, I retreated to my bedroom, needing time to think, to process everything that had happened. I could hear Evelyn downstairs, moving around the kitchen, but I couldn't bring myself to face her. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with thoughts I didn't want to have. How had we gotten here? How had something so simple, so pure, become so complicated? I had always prided myself on being a good mother, on raising Evelyn with love and care, but now I wondered if I had done something wrong. Had I been too close, too affectionate to something I didn't know the answers? I felt trapped, torn between my love for my daughter and the unsettling feelings that had begun to grow between us. It wasn't supposed to be this way. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with everything that had happened. I kept replaying our conversation, trying to make sense of it, trying to find a way to fix things. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized there was no easy solution. Eventually, exhaustion won and I drifted into a restless sleep. But even in my dreams, the tension between us lingered, haunting me with its unresolved weight. The house was still when night fell again, the familiar creaks in the walls, the soft hum of the fridge, and the ticking of the clock only heightened the silence that had settled between us. After everything that had happened, we both kept our distance during the day, trying to avoid what we had been unwilling to confront. But I knew the space between us was just a temporary escape, and eventually it would close in on us. I was sitting in the living room, half-heartedly flipping through a magazine I wasn't reading. My thoughts swirling in a place I couldn't escape. I could feel her presence in the house. Though not in the room, the weight of her closeness lingered everywhere. Then I heard her. Her footsteps were soft, tentative, like she wasn't sure if she should come closer. I didn't move, pretending I hadn't noticed. But my heart sped up the moment she stepped into the room. Mom, can we talk? Her voice was quieter than usual, but there was something in it, something I wasn't ready to face. I turned toward her, trying to keep my expression neutral, but the tension between us was undeniable. I nodded, but didn't trust myself to speak. I put the magazine down, smoothing out the pages as though that simple motion could make everything wrong between us disappear. She sat beside me, too close for comfort. The air in the room seemed to thicken. For a moment, I didn't say anything, waiting for her to break the silence, hoping that whatever came next wouldn't unravel the fragile thread of control I had been holding onto. But deep down, I knew that thread was already fraying. I don't know how to say this, Evelyn began, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes met mine, and I saw the same thing I'd been avoiding acknowledging for days now. It was there in the way she looked at me, in the way her words lingered, heavier than they should have been. What is it, Evelyn? I managed to ask, though my voice trembled more than I intended. She looked away for a moment, running a hand through her hair, clearly struggling to find the right words. Then, with a soft exhale, she turned back to me. I can't pretend nothing's changed. Something has, and I don't know what to do about it. There it was, the truth hanging in the air between us. I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry. I wanted to deny it, to tell her that nothing had changed, that everything was still the same between us. But it wasn't. We both knew that. I don't know what you're talking about, I lied, even though I could feel the heat rising in my chest, threatening to betray me. She shook her head, frustration flashing in her eyes. You do. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The room seemed to close in on us, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. I didn't want to have this conversation, but it was too late now. We were past the point of pretending, past the point of turning back. I don't think we should talk about this, I whispered, my voice trembling. We can't. But she wasn't backing down. She shifted closer, and I could feel the warmth of her body radiating toward me, pulling me in even though I knew I should push her away. Why can't we? She asked softly, her eyes searching mine. Why do we have to pretend like we don't feel this? I could hear the desperation in her voice, the same desperation I had been trying to suppress within myself. My heart raced, and I felt my resolve cracking, breaking under the weight of the emotions that had been building between us. This wasn't right. It wasn't supposed to be this way, but I couldn't deny it anymore. I don't know, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I don't know why. She reached out then, her hand hovering just inches from mine, as if waiting for me to make the decision. I should have stopped it. I should have told her to leave, to go upstairs, to walk away. But I didn't. I can't stop thinking about it, she admitted, her voice raw with emotion. I've tried, but I can't. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew exactly what she meant because I had been feeling it, to the weight of it, pressing down on me, suffocating me. I had tried to push it away, to ignore it, but it was too strong, too overwhelming. Evelyn, we can't, I whispered, but the words felt hollow, like I didn't even believe in myself. Her hand brushed against mine, just for a moment, and a surge of heat rushed through me, a feeling I had been fighting for days. I found myself leaning into her, drawn to her in a way I couldn't explain, couldn't justify. And then, before I could process what was happening, she kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, like she wasn't sure if I would push her away. But I didn't. I couldn't. The moment her lips touched mine, everything inside me exploded. Every emotion I had been trying to suppress rushed to the surface in a tidal wave of need, confusion, and desire. I kissed her back. I can't quite explain how it unfolded. One moment we were sitting on the couch, avoiding the truth between us, and the next, everything we had been holding back came rushing out. Unstoppable, the kiss quickly became more than just a kiss, and before I realized it, we were consumed by each other. Somehow, we crossed the line, and everything we shouldn't have done, we did. We didn't say a word. The silence between us was filled with everything we had been too afraid to admit, everything we had been too afraid to feel. As we gave into that moment, to each other, I knew there was no going back. It all happened so fast, so intensely, that by the time we finally pulled away, both of us were breathless, our hearts pounding in sync. I stared at her, my mind racing, my body trembling with the realization of what we had just done. Everything had changed. We sat in stunned silence, too overwhelmed to speak, too overwhelmed to move. The weight of what had just happened settled over us like a heavy blanket, suffocating and inescapable. I couldn't look at her. Couldn't look at myself. How did we let this happen? I whispered more to myself than to her. Evelyn didn't answer. She just sat there, staring at the floor, her face pale and drawn. I could see the same mix of guilt and confusion flooding through me written all over her features. We shouldn't have, I stammered, my voice breaking. This is wrong. She turned to me. Her expression pained, I know. But we couldn't stop it, could we? I shook my head, tears burning in my eyes. No, we couldn't. The realization of what we had done crashed over me like a tidal wave, and I felt sick to my stomach. This was my fault. I should have been stronger. I should have stopped it before it went too far. But now there was no going back. The line had been crossed, and nothing would ever be the same. I think you should leave, I said softly, my voice shaking. I think you need to go. Evelyn looked at me, her eyes wide with hurt. Leave? I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. We need space, Evelyn. We can't be here together like this. For a moment, she didn't move, like she was frozen in place. But then, slowly, she stood, her shoulders slumped in defeat. She didn't say a word as she turned and walked out of the room, leaving me alone on the couch. The weight of what we had done crushing down on me. I sat there for a long time, staring at the spot where she had been, my mind racing with guilt and regret. How had we let it go this far? How had I let it happen? But deep down, I knew the answer. We hadn't been able to stop ourselves, and now we would have to live with the consequences. The morning sun was bright, casting sharp shadows on the ground, but inside me, everything felt dark. I had been trying to piece together some sense of normalcy, but normal had slipped through our fingers the moment we allowed things to go too far. I don't know how we got here, I said, breaking the silence, my voice barely audible. Evelyn's eyes didn't move from the horizon. Neither do I, she murmured, her tone quiet, flat. The tension between us wasn't just in what we had done, it was in the uncertainty of what would happen next. I can't stop thinking about it, Evelyn admitted, her voice trembling slightly, though she was trying to hide it. I thought I could, but I can't. I swallowed, my throat dry. Neither can I confessed. I hated the truth of those words, but I couldn't lie to her or to myself, no matter how wrong it was. The memory of what had happened clung to me, persistent and overwhelming. We can't, I stopped myself, unable to finish the thought. We just can't keep doing this. Evelyn nodded, but her expression remained unchanged. I know. But what do we do now? Pretend it didn't happen. My chest tightened at the thought. No, I whispered, we can't do that. But we have to find a way to move on from it. We have to. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The stillness between us felt like a delicate thread, ready to snap at any moment. I could see the pain in her eyes, the confusion that mirrored my own, and it broke my heart. This was my fault. I should have stopped it sooner. Should have been stronger. Should have kept my distance. But I hadn't. I don't know if I can. Evelyn admitted, her voice cracking. I don't know how to move on. Her vulnerability shattered something inside me. She was still my daughter, and yet everything between us had shifted in ways I couldn't fully understand. How could I help her when I was drowning in my own guilt and confusion? How could we heal from this? I think we need time apart, I said softly, my voice trembling. Time to figure things out, to clear our heads. Evelyn flinched, her jaw tightening. You mean time to forget? I shook my head, tears burning in my eyes. No, not to forget. We'll never forget, Evelyn. But we need space to heal. We can't keep living under the same roof with this hanging over us. Her eyes finally met mine, and the pain in them was almost too much to bear. So you want me to leave? The question was loaded, and it tore at me in ways I hadn't anticipated. But I knew what I had to say, even if it hurt. I think it's best if you go back to the city for a while, I whispered, my heart breaking with every word. We need time apart, Evelyn. It's the only way. Evelyn clenched her fists, her face tightening with frustration. For a second, I thought she might argue. But then she sighed, defeated, and stood up from the porch. Fine, she muttered, I'll go. The words cut deeper than I expected. I wanted to tell her it wasn't a punishment, that I wasn't abandoning her. But the truth was, I needed space just as much as she did. I couldn't breathe with her here. With the constant reminder of what we had done looming over us. I'll pack my things, she said stiffly, without looking at me. I didn't try to stop her. I knew anything I said would only make it harder. So I stayed on the porch, watching as she disappeared into the house, listening to the distant sound of her footsteps, the faint shuffle of her movements as she packed her belongings. The minutes felt like hours, dragging on as I sat there, staring at the garden Evelyn and I had once tended together, back when things were simple. When she came back out, she had a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She paused at the front door, hesitating for a moment before turning to look at me. There was something in her eyes, an apology, maybe, or a plea. I wasn't sure, Mom. Her voice faltered and she took a step toward me as if wanting to say something more, but the words didn't come. I stood, feeling the knot in my chest tighten. Evelyn, this isn't forever, I said softly. We just need time, she nodded. But I could see the hurt in her eyes. I know, she whispered. But I don't want to lose you. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I had to force myself to hold them back. You're not going to lose me. I promised. I'm your mother. And I'll always love you. But we need this, we both do. As Evelyn moved toward the door, a tension I couldn't shake tightened around us. Her eyes lingered on mine, full of a silent question neither of us dared to ask. I took a hesitant step forward, the distance between us shrinking, my breath caught in my throat, heart pounding in the stillness. The space around us seemed to collapse, leaving only the charged atmosphere between us, unspoken and undeniable. For a moment, we just stood there, neither of us moving, both aware of the pull that had taken hold. Then, with a quiet urgency I couldn't control, I leaned in closer, the air thick with emotions too powerful to suppress. Her gaze softened and there was a flicker of something deeper, something forbidden. Yet neither of us stepped away. It was more than words could explain, a fleeting, intense closeness both of us wanted. I finally whispered, my voice strained, hurry before Mom returns, daughter. The words cut through the moment, bringing reality crashing back. But the intensity lingered. She turned to leave, the silence between us louder than anything else. And I was left standing there, shaken, knowing everything had changed. I stood on the porch, watching as she started the engine and pulled out of the driveway. The sound of the tires on the gravel, the only noise in the stillness of the morning. And just like that, she was gone. The house felt unbearably empty, and the hours that followed, I wandered through the rooms, trying to keep myself busy. But every corner held a memory of her, of us. The quiet was oppressive, pressing down on me until it felt like I couldn't breathe. I went into the kitchen, hoping the routine of cleaning would distract me, but as I wiped down the counter, I realized I had no idea how to move forward from this. How was I supposed to heal from something that felt so deeply wrong? How could I ever look at myself in the mirror again without feeling the weight of what we had done? The guilt was overwhelming, threatening to consume me whole. I had been so careful my entire life, always making the right choices, always putting Evelyn first. And yet somehow, I had let this happen. I had let everything spiral out of control. And now I didn't know how to put the pieces back together. For the rest of the day, I tried to distract myself with chores, with anything that could keep my mind from wandering back to that night, to what we had done. But it was no use. Eventually, exhaustion took over and I fell into a fitful sleep. My dreams filled with images of Evelyn, of the two of us standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into the abyss, unsure of how to pull ourselves back. When I woke the next morning, the weight was still there, pressing down on me like a stone. But I knew I had to find a way to move forward for my sake, for Evelyn's. We couldn't stay trapped in this darkness forever. I didn't know how long it would take or if we would ever truly heal from this. But one thing was clear, we couldn't stay in the same place anymore. Things had changed between us. And whether I liked it or not, we had to face a reality.